ever fly America's worst airline? Because according to Google and thousands of you telling me, Spirit Airlines is considered to be the worst airline in all of America, and they're so bad that people have literally made them into a meme. So today I'm going to be flying Spirit to see if they're really as bad as what people say, and the reviews are honestly horrifying. Apparently terrible customer service, overpriced bags, and uncomfortable seats are all things people complained about. So just like last time when I flew the world's worst airline, we're going to be going on 2 flights to see how true these horrible reviews actually are. And I'll be honest, right now it's about 24 hours before my flight, and I just got the email for check-in, and things are already off to a horrible start. So right off the bat, I had to put my last name and confirmation code in, but after that, I was brought to a summary of my booking before going on to the next section. The next thing that popped up was Spirit trying to sell me additional bags and seat selection, which costed extra, so I decided to skip that, and after that was even more things that Spirit wanted me to buy. But anyways, up to this point, I was feeling pretty good, but when I finally got to my boarding passes, it said I needed to see an agent in order to check in. And the only problem is that when you do in-person check-in, they charge you an extra $25 per person according to their website. So hopefully they're gonna let me check in at the airport. And on top of that, they better not make me pay the $25 fee. And unfortunately, we have another slight issue. And that's because I live in Canada, and Spirit Airlines only flies out of American airports, so because I had an 11 a.m. flight, I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, just so my mom could drive me and my girlfriend 3 hours across the border to Detroit in order to catch my flight on Spirit. All right, thank you very much. Ready, Mads?
Ready.
Woo! It's time to see if Spirit is actually as bad as the reviews said, and hopefully they don't charge us that $25 fee. Fingers crossed. Is this check-in?
Do y'all have your boarding passes?
We tried doing online, and so we need to speak to an agent.
So pull up where it's saying it's gonna be a confirmation code there. Go up to the kiosk, enter in that code, it'll print your boarding pass out.
Okay. And I'll be honest, at this point, I was fully expecting to pay the $25, given what all the reviews had said. But after typing in the confirmation code and going through the whole check-in process, it turns out the boarding pass is printed out and we didn't have to pay the fee. Well, that was incredibly easy. So after finishing up with the check-in, we made our way through security. And when we got to the other side, we saw that our flight was on time. So hopefully it stays that way. Surprisingly, out of all 3 budget airlines that I've flown so far, Spirit has had the best check-in process, which I really wasn't expecting considering all of the negative reviews. So now that we're through security and waiting for our flight, I thought I would give some facts about Spirit since I know there's a lot of aviation people who enjoy watching these videos. So number 1, Spirit's actually a pretty big airline. They have a total of 190 aircraft and it mainly consists of Airbus. Number 2, Spirit is currently being acquired by JetBlue, so hopefully they don't sue me if things go wrong during this video. Because like I said earlier, the reviews aren't that good. And number 3, Spirit is delayed 27.4% of the time. That means 1 in 4 times you go to the airport, your flight is gonna be delayed. So hopefully that isn't gonna happen today. And besides that, there isn't really anything else too interesting, but it is Maddie's first time ever flying on a budget airline. So what do you kind of expect?
Like really small seats. Maybe the plane crashes.
Okay, it's not gonna crash.
It's a budget airline. It's like Walmart version of like Aritzia.
You do realize there's no like food or drinks on these planes, right?
So I'm gonna starve.
And there's no movies. And for anyone else who hasn't flown a budget airline, the way they kind of work is the tickets are super cheap, but any baggage is expensive and pretty much anything additional that you would expect you have to pay for. For example, to bring a carry-on bag, that's gonna cost you $58, but if you want to check a bag, then you're looking at $48. And guess what? If you want to pick a seat, you better be willing to pay $21 extra, and if you want first class, you're looking at an additional $157. But thankfully, Spirit does offer some bundles to help reduce the cost, but it's not by much. But luckily we don't have any bags or anything like that.
We're good.
Another thing I just noticed is Spirit actually has really good size for the carry-ons and personal items. For example, my backpack fits in perfectly as a carry-on and fits perfectly as a personal item too, which is definitely way better than some of the other budget airlines I've flown. For example, when I flew on Canada's worst airline, my backpack wouldn't even fit in the personal item. Honestly, so far, Spirit's not doing too bad. But none of that really matters because the real test is gonna be the flight itself, and that's what we're gonna be doing right now. Ready to go, Mads?
Oh, I'm scared there might be some crazy turbulence.
You'll be fine. So after making our way through the airport and getting to our gate, it was time for our first of 2 flights. And let me tell you, things were much worse than I expected. So right off the bat, we noticed we were randomly assigned into the $32 section, which I thought would have slightly better seats from the rest of the plane, but I was very wrong. First of all, these seats are located right behind the first class, and the knee room wasn't too bad, but if you happen to get stuck in the middle like Maddie, you definitely get less room. As for the rest of the seats, there's no in-flight entertainment, no headrest on the seats, no button to recline the seats, a weird pad over the seatbelt, and there was a tray table which fit nicely into the seats, but it was a little bit small. Now, another thing I noticed was the plane itself had some wear and tear, especially on the flooring, which wasn't very clean, and after we taxied for takeoff, I noticed something else. First off, I'm no expert, but I don't think the bathroom door is supposed to be swinging open during takeoff. But after getting to altitude, I checked it out, and the bathroom was definitely smaller than the other ones I've been in, but it has all the essentials and a changing table for babies, which is definitely a plus. But anyways, besides that, I was happy to find that the air conditioning was working, but when we were coming in for landing, one of the worst smells I have ever experienced started coming out of it. But remember, this was only the first flight, and we could have just gotten super unlucky. So coming up, I have a second Spirit flight to truly determine if they're as bad as what everyone has been saying.
All right, so that flight was not what I was expecting. So after everything went smooth in the airport, I was assuming the flight was gonna be good too, but I could understand why the reviews are exactly as they say. Those seats had to be the most uncomfortable things I have ever sat in my entire life.
It's not an exaggeration to say it's like sitting on concrete.
Another thing that I was wrong about is that they actually did offer food and drinks, but you had to pay for all of them. So again, it kind of sucks, but I mean, it is a budget airline. And the other thing that completely caught me off guard was the fact that there was this weird foul smell that was coming through the air conditioning. What was the best way to describe it?
If you've ever been into a nail salon, like acrylic and like acetone, that is like bang on what it was.
But besides that, what was your thoughts on the first flight?
Like the seats are pretty bad and uncomfortable, but like at the end of the day, it's 25 bucks. What else was I really expecting, you know?
But anyways, it is now time for the second flight, and hopefully this time things will be a little bit better.
So after getting our boarding passes scanned and heading onto the plane, I was fully prepared for a repeat of the first flight, but I was actually wrong. Unlike the first flight, this time we were randomly assigned to the $21 section, and I have to say these seats are actually way better than the front. These ones had more legroom, more space for our bags, and on top of that, these seats had traditional tray tables that were way bigger than before. Now, all wasn't perfect though, because these seats were just as stiff as the first time, and for some reason the armrests weren't flush with the seats, so it was definitely uncomfortable when trying to sprawl out. But besides that, the only thing left to do was check out the bathroom at the back of the plane, which was definitely more spacious than the front, and overall I'd say both flights were smooth sailing with very little turbulence and super solid landings. So is it safe to say that Spirit is America's worst airline? Well, it's actually really hard to answer that question. Right off the bat, I do have to say every single Spirit employee we talked to or interacted with was actually really good. But now the flight itself was probably one of the worst I have ever been on. But at the same time, the tickets were only $25 per person, which is incredibly cheap. If you're looking for a high quality airline, Spirit is definitely not what you want to go for. But if you're looking for something super cheap and just trying to get from point A to point B with pretty much no luggage at all, then it's actually a really good deal. Anyways, if you guys want to see how Spirit compares to some other budget airlines, go watch this video next where I flew the world's worst airline.